Hey guys, welcome to this video. Tons of value to be taken today. There's a lot of lower odds favourites in races where you don't have an awful lot of runners, and also there is a good space between the odds. You've already seen my £6,000 plus that I've made in the last couple of months just from Betfair, but I just bet about £4,000. You can see it on all of these bets: 100, 60, 50, 200, blah, blah, blah. They're all on here. And we're going to see where we end up, because you would imagine if you place that many bets and you're a gambler, you would probably lose money. I mean, most gamblers do. But I've taken some very decent odds today, very high EV, so I would expect reasonable gains from this. The races which I've bet on the most, on Betfair particularly, we can have a look at. You can see today there was actually one more, the 645, but that has dropped out of extra places. You don't have to bet on extra places, as I always say, but in many cases you'll get some really, really decent odds if you do. So you can see a couple of dropouts here. The odds are reasonable because if you look up the board, if you look at the top two, there's a sudden jump, almost double to that one, and then you go over 10 to 1, okay, and beyond. So a lot of these horses are quite high odds, and that really opens the door for these lower odds ones. Same thing with this race. Okay, a lot of higher odds horses there, and a good gap here. The bigger the gap between favourite and non-favourite, or higher odds horses in general, the outsiders, underdogs, the more EV you're going to get, the more value per bet. Again, you can see the same here. This is the first one I bet on today. But yeah, I mean, there isn't a massive amount of races. There'll probably be many more tomorrow because it's Saturday. Yeah, where you can see actually there isn't. So not a very exciting race day. But in comparison to today, I've still managed to get £4,000 off. This one has dropped out of extra places because you can see you've had a couple of dropouts already. But this horse I had a good lot on. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, what if the odds drop? What if a horse drops out? Blah, blah, blah. You have to remember that if that happens, the chance of this one winning actually goes up because obviously there's less runners. So over the long run, it doesn't make a difference. There are Rule 4 rules that come in and things like that. But generally speaking, it does depend on the site you're using. But generally speaking, it doesn't make a difference overall. Your EV is still going to be the same. Because simply, if a horse drops out, your odds are going to move anyway. So, yeah, I've got some good ones on favourites today. Down Royal at 1 o'clock has quite a few runners. So, obviously, with more runners, even if the odds are higher, you have to be careful because the value can change too. I think this might have been 5 places earlier. One of these is a 5-place race. And there's bags of value to be taken when there's 5 places. Yeah, it must have been that one. So you probably had some run. Yeah, there's a couple dropped out there. But again, the more that drop out, you've then got bog as well, but you've also got a change in odds on your bet. So we'll see where we end up. But we got some good stakes. So if we're looking for something like, let's say, 10% EV, 12% EV, really the returns on £4,000 should be £400 to £500. Now, it's worth remembering as well that if you gamble, you are going to lose all your money. Now or later, doesn't matter. Even if you win first, some point you're going to lose everything. So do not gamble if you can help it at the least. Don't watch these stakes and think, wow, I'm going to go and gamble now because Will's gambling. These are not gambles. I have absolutely I don't know who's riding the horses, what colours they've got, what the numbers are, what they ran like last time, all this rubbish about their form and the ground being hard or soft and all that stuff. I'm sure that works for some people. But all I care about is this. Literally this. It's just this. It's the only thing, the numbers. Don't worry about the horses. The numbers are all that matters because that's what makes this a business. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
So there you can see on my stakes and returns, stakes of £3,990. So just under the 4,000 that we were looking at. And returns are 4,549. So that's fairly representative of the standard EV that I would expect to take. Essentially, you can see that there is a profit of about £560, okay, or just under 559, and we bet 4,000 or so. So maybe a little bit higher. I set the ballpark about 10 to 14%, so a bit on the higher end of the spectrum, but nonetheless a good representative example. Most people who gamble that much would almost certainly lose, because they're just not spreading their stakes and they're not betting at a positive margin. So a good example there. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.